Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Ever Crisis tier list. Today, with our favorite specimen on the second half of the first summer banner is Red 13. Red 13, in my opinion, I think this is going to be the hardest tier list to rank, as Red 13 has just a very different equipment set than most other characters that we've seen so far, or just most other characters in general in the game. So stay with me as we try and wrap our heads on where to rank all of these collars for this wonderful feline, or the Square Enix technically considers him a feline. I know some people consider him a dog, but where we're gonna put Red 13's collars. Let's get into it. Usual disclaimer and rules at the start of every tier list. This tier list is my opinion, okay? And this is where I think that each of Red 13's weapons should go. You may agree with me, you may disagree with me, and this is a great place that we can start having a conversation down in the comments down below. So let me know. These are my factors and rules right here for how I judge my tier list. So if you want to pause so you can read them, and that should be good, okay? Let's get into the tier list. My boy Red 13, as I said in the intro, he is not making this tier list easy for me. Okay, so I think we are going to go over his limit breaks first, because that's going to... This is so just... Yeah, you guys will see. Unlike Cloud and Zack, where they just have big single target damage and then big AoE damage, there's a lot more thought that has to go into these limit breaks. So you have Sled Fang and Lunatic High. Sled Fang, you love me a good limit break that's got 800 charge speed. So you see it's got 320, so it's a lot less damage than those big ones like the Cross Slash from Cloud, okay? So a lot less damage, but it gives physical attack down medium and then magic attack down medium. Lunatic High, same charging speed that we're used to for most of them, being the 1800. And this one, the heal potency 4, you're not going to be healing for very much. But the main thing that you're going to be going for is that physical defense and magical defense medium up for both of them. These are both of the limit breaks that you use those moments before the boss does those big moves. You see that boss icon, and it's charging up. Luckily, there's no cast time. You push limit break button, it is going to go off before that. If you need the magic damage down or the physical damage down, you go with Sled Fang. If you have other characters that can perform this same task and you need the buffs instead, you go for Lunatic High. It's just, he's very flexible defensively on all of his limit breaks. The Seaside Collar is a very interesting equipment, and it has a mechanic that basically got confirmed in the notices that just happened that some of you might not even know how it works. Like with all the breach materia that are available for the Crisis Metal exchange, the Fire, Ice, and Lightning breach, where they give elemental resistance down, that doesn't work on every single enemy. So the Seaside Collar here does 320 for ATB non-elemental damage. It gives Thunder resist down, starting at medium, up to high. And then it also gives him just a small little regen effect. It's unless you have a lot of cure potency, the regen effect is not going to take that much into an effect. Okay, but the thing with this is, unless an enemy is already weak to lightning, this will never trigger on an enemy. So unless you're fighting something like an Airbuster or a Guard Scorpion, so it's gonna make you hit those enemies significantly harder. But I know when I was thinking about getting the Thunder Breach so I could boost up Cloud's Murasama, that's not how that's going to work on just any enemy. It has to be enemies that are already weak to lightning. The bonus stats on top of it, boost HP is massive as a main, as well as boost lightning potency. So it's not going to help here, because unless you're using lightning materia, thunder materia, it's not going to boost the materia. This is one of its saving graces, at least if you want to make this your main equipment slot, is just you're going to sigil boost a lot harder. For me, this is either SS plus tier if you are fighting something that is actually weak to lightning. This is just going to be a fantastic, fantastic piece of gear. Or it's going to be D tier because it's just not going to actually do anything. Because if it's just not weak to lightning, it doesn't take into effect. Okay? So I'm putting the Seaside Collar in B. It's good when it's good, and it's bad when it's bad. So it gets crushed in the middle. You guys are gonna notice a big trend with this Red 13 tier list is just, if this, then that. It's going to bump certain things up for him. It's gonna bump things lower. So with Sleek Collar here, you're gonna see it gives magic defense up medium, all the way up to high on the second cast. As you upgrade it, eventually you can get straight to high, but that's not what we're doing right now. Magic defense, wind resistance, not an amazing main equip. Same with the materia. The buffs on it's okay, but in terms of the magic defense is useful because you can bump it up to medium up to high if you are just having trouble. If you're having trouble with AoE magic damage against certain fights. If you are running Lunatic High, you just don't need this piece of gear, but if you're using Sled Fang to lower the damage, and then you can Sleek Collar to increase your defense, it turns it into a much stronger option. So for that, I'm going to put Sleek Collar into the A tier. Very useful. If you're running Lunatic High, drops down. If you're running Sled Fang, gets to about A+ tier. So this is the first of either the buff or debuffs that Red 13 gives that does not interact with his limit breaks. So for me, Gold Collar, I consider this to be one of Red 13's best weapons. Even though it does do magical damage, it targets everyone, but it's an AoE magic defense down low, so you have to use it twice to be able to get those double stacks on there. But still, it's AoE magic defense down. So this is good if you want to run your Red 13 in a magic team. There's a lot of things going for him. That's just going to show that his magic damage potential is there. So for me, Gold Collar is going to be into his A+ tier. Just being able to lower that magic defense down. A lot of moves as well, like you notice on Aerith and just any other characters that have a magic attack. A lot of them are AoE based. So if you can lower the defense of every single thing on the screen, sure, if against single target bosses, that's not really going to make a difference, but it's going to help you clear those beginning waves. So for me, it doesn't interact. Doesn't matter what limit break you use for this one. Magic defense down / physical defense down. Anything that's going to make you hit harder in virtually any situation is a good weapon. With Platinum Collar, this is a weapon that I don't currently own, as you can tell by not held. With the region that I get from Aerith's limit break, the region is nice. It ticks up. I still haven't played around with the region that much. Make sure it still takes 5 ATB, so it still has a lot of ATB. Materia is nothing crazy. The boosting heal is nice, so if you're going to build him as a healer, like, you can use this work for the substats. But again, for all of these, we're basing it on the C ability. For me, this is hard. I don't know enough about region for here, so please, if you have Platinum Collar or you've played around with region more, let me know if I'm crazy or if I'm horribly off on this. I would love to be wrong. For me, we're going to share the C and D tier with Platinum Collar with one other piece of gear that is coming up later for Red 13. He's mainly a buffer and debuffer, as you're going to notice by a lot of his higher weapons, and even by his limit breaks. That's just what he excels at. He's either going to lower their enemy's defense, or he's going to boost your defenses. It's just how I find and how I feel that Red 13 should be played. So with Noble Collar here, in terms of it being a Red 13 weapon, if you are running the Gold Collar and you are lowering their magic resistance, boom, your water damage is going to do a lot more with it. The boost attack, so it's increasing both your physical and magic. It's got a healthy amount of points into that. Same with some water potency, so it is self-boosting itself nicely. It does also have a sigil boost. So if you were going to be running Magic Red 13, I consider Noble Collar to be a very, very, very good weapon for that. Again, you got to base it around what you're currently building. Just nothing still is being a big standout as like, oh my god, this is the piece of gear. This is making Red 13 stand out. In terms of what it does with the sigil boost and like the good R abilities attached to it, I'll put Noble Collar in A tier for Red 13 just based on his other weapons so far. If I could do like a grand tier list across all the characters, this would drop down. I would not consider this as impressive. But in terms of what Red 13 has available to him and just the different water elements, again, we're not going to compare with Cloud coming out with his new water sword. So if you're building a water team, it would work like that. But just still strictly on its own for what Red 13 has available to him, I think Noble Collar will get the job done if you have something like Gold Collar, and it'll all work together. It'll synergize. Next up for Rage Collar, we're now shifting back into the physical side of things. So we just had Noble Collar with the water It both also has boost attack up, and it has water potency. So this one's now 400 physical fire, similar to like Murasama's lightning 400 physical lightning. So if you are fighting something that is fire-based, then this is going to just do, it's going to do very, very good damage. Elemental advantages are, if you can get them, elemental advantages are going to be the way to go for a lot of fights. I see that being a little bit of a bottleneck on just how you have to build specific characters here. Nothing too crazy over on the materia side of things. The R abilities are nice. It fits into it. I picture this to be very, very similar to Noble's Collar. But for me, since Noble Collar does have the Sigil boost, I think that Sigil boost is a lot more flexible. It just gives a whole other element on top of it. For me, Rage Collar is going to be in the B. If you're fighting something that is fire, it can go A+. If it's not fire, then like B drops down to a C. It still is a healthy amount of damage if you're going to go for physical. The R abilities are still, it's a lot of boost attack. If that is going to be your main weapon, yeah, I think it sits pretty healthy at B, and it can go either direction based on the elements that you're fighting against. And now we have Leather Collar, the true physical weapon for Red 13 with the 500 damage. It's kind of same thing as Apocalypse for Cloud. We love some boost HP. The boost Earth potency is a little bit random coming through it. It's materia. Heal potency. So if this is your main gear, your cure spells, your cure materia is going to be a lot stronger in the third slot. Leather Collar is another good baseline as long as it is not strong to physical. It doesn't matter what you're going to fight. This is going to be able to do that good physical damage. Red 13 does not have any way of buffing his own physical damage. He doesn't have a physical defense down. So Leather Collar, again, I'm not comparing it with any teams. If you can get a physical defense down, Leather Collar for me is a fairly good weapon. It's just, I can't picture it being A+. I'm going to put Leather Collar into A as well, just because it's non-elemental, does 500, and that boost HP on top of it, it's a good piece of gear if you want your Red 13 to do physical damage. 2 more to go. So we have the Rubber Collar here, which is Red 13's over big healing ability, his healing weapon. You have Mystic Flow, 5 ATB. So it's basically the same as having a cure materia. Sure, maybe a little bit more potency, but physical defense, limit break potency. You again, Lunatic High, you're not even getting limit break damage, and Sled Fang is not there for the damage because the modifiers are a lot lower. The materia side of things, nothing too crazy. You could technically make Red 13 a healer. I don't recommend it. Like, I'm putting it that it's going to share the bottom slots with Platinum Collar. You can make it heal. Honestly, I think Rubber Collar, I have not tested regen enough of Platinum, so I don't know if Platinum deserves to be C and Rubber deserves to be D, because I don't want to use one of my C abilities. I don't want to consume one of my main weapon slots to just have a cure, when I could just throw a cure materia into that final slot, and just, it does the same thing as this equipment. So for me, Rubber Collar, the physical defense, it's physical defense still okay, but it's just not worth that C ability slot. Last up for our Red 13 weapons, we have the Junk Collar. Luckily, it's not a piece of junk, okay? It's nothing crazy, but it's definitely not a piece of junk. 4 ATB, 320, physical, single target, lowers magic attack by medium, upwards of high. Okay, we have the physical defense, we got some fire resist, nothing crazy on the materia side. Getting hit less is always nice. It's, again, if you're going to use him as a buffer and debuffer, don't worry about the R abilities, but the C ability here, if you are running Sled Fang, this is not the piece of gear for you. Okay, you still need to build up that ATB. You need to use it twice to bypass what Sled Fang can do. Usually with like magic and physical attack downs, you're waiting till the boss is like, they're charging up. You see that little boss symbol, you see that charge just as it gets to the end. Sometimes you use your ability, it doesn't quite go off. Okay, limit breaks, just as it's about to get there, you push limit break, it is going off 100% of the time. So I still think Junk Collar is a good piece of gear. Okay, it's just, if you're running Sled Fang, not nearly as good. So for me, Junk Collar is still, if this, then that. It's going to go to A tier because it's still useful. If you run Lunatic High, you get your buffs up before, you throw the Junk Collar on. Those magic enemies are just not magically damaging quite as much. And that right there is my Red 13 tier list. Please let me know what you guys think. Right now, I've looked over the characters. This has been above and beyond the hardest to put things in terms of power level scaling for what I want Red 13 to do. I love his limit breaks. I love that you can lower their damage and you can up your defenses. Like, I think he is great if you're having trouble surviving certain things, or if like a co-op, you don't know what they're gonna run and you just don't want to get one shot by certain things. When it gets to a certain power level, I don't think it's gonna matter, but still, he could make or break in those scenarios. Yeah, please let me know down in the comments what you think, specifically with Platinum Collar as well. Like, if you have tested the region and I am dead wrong, I would love to hear it. I would love to hear it and know that region for that 5 ATB is gonna be worth it. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you enjoyed the video. I also stream over at Twitch at twitch.tv/longtimetwitch. Link in the description down below. But yeah, we're gonna keep pumping out these tier lists. We're gonna keep going over every single character's weapons of what they have right now. I know the Aerith and Cloud banner just came out. Aerith is gonna be the next character, by the way. Thank you very much for joining, guys, and just let me know what you think. Okay? See ya.